all, thank you for this lovely jacket, Heatwave. And here we have James Deane all the way over in the United States chatting with me, and I have to think of something on the spot to talk to him about. What is the difference between all these different parts of the world that you're drifting in, like culturally, competitively, car build type? Like when I go to Japan or I go to all these different places, I see something and like pops into my head like, wow, when I was in Ireland, all the freaking headlights were painted on the cars. I didn't know about that. Or, you know, like the judging style was extremely different, or the cars, or like, you see more drifting than anyone else on the planet. What is it like?
Yeah, so for me, first time at Drift Week, first time ever coming to the US to not drift competitively and just have a good time. And I'm absolutely loving the experience. It's so chilled out. Even if we're having a couple of car issues, it doesn't matter because there's no competition, there's no time limit, there's no rush, nobody is stressing, and it's been a while for me to do events like this, and that's absolutely just brilliant to experience. Meeting new friends that I'll probably have for a very long time after hanging out for 2 weeks solid. But in general, US, I guess the obvious thing is V8s. Even at Drift Week here, there's so many Corvettes drifting. I don't know how many have entered, but I've never seen so. Yeah, a lot. Yeah. Like they're like.
People tell me they're like supercars overseas and stuff, so it's odd to see drifting.
Exactly. It's like
we call them S16s, like Silvia's.
Yeah. In the US, they're like 350Zs to us in Europe. You know what I mean? So it's really cool to see them. So many of them drifting here. Obviously have the Mustangs, which are cool as well. So a lot of American muscle, which is interesting for me because we just don't have that back in Europe. We have very little, I won't say very little V8s competitively drifting. In Drift Masters there's quite a few, but there's a lot more 2Js, RBs, like JDM style turbo setups competing in Europe. So another Corvette. They're just, it's cool, like, but style in America, I would say quite similar to Europe in a way. That's what I feel like when I was competing in FD and competing in Drift Masters at the same time. I was actually competing in three championships a year from 17 to 19.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so it was just absolutely insane. But the style from Europe to the US was quite similar. Like I wasn't really adjusting my driving style, switching back and forth. So yeah, it's great to be back in the US again. It's been, what, since 2019 SEMA show, so 3 full years away. And it's great to be back after all COVID and everything. It's great to be back.
Good. And you're doing it without beating everybody here today into submission in a competition, so it's nice for us. Come over from Ireland and make us all look bad, all the Americans, and all the other people. But it's funny, I was thinking he was going to tell me about the Russian Drift Series or all these other things. I forget he's foreign and we're local, so he's talking about our stuff backwards because that's a weird culture. What is it like with the Russian drifting and stuff? Is it very similar to Drift Masters in Europe?
And of course, Drift Week has the best sponsors such as BC Racing Custom Coilovers, Vape Tasia, Heatwave Visual, NK Wheels, WhatMonstersDo.com. Use the discount code EBISU. And of course, ECU Master for building the James Deane car and coming on this trip with us. Thank you, everyone.
I legit laughed just editing this. I didn't see this before editing, and I gave Sai the instructions to go film something for Heatwave sunglasses that showed like the protective nature of the lenses functioning and everything else, and I'm editing and just this pops up. Hilarious. Let's get back to this video.
I would say Russia they're so inspired by Japanese, so the style of drifting is very Japanese, like dives and big dives and not so much focused on the lead line, which Europe is very focused on your line. Formula Drift is very focused on the lead car where it's positioned. But in Russia it was all about speed. So if somebody is fast and pulling away, even if they're missing some clips, they weren't docked that heavily. And the same thing if you're chasing, you have insane proximity but you're very shallow or have small angle. They don't really judge that too harshly. So it's a different style, probably the most different style I've competed in, but we had a very good time there. It's good, you know, getting to drive in new tracks. Like some of the tracks they had there were, I think the fastest one we had was 116, in my car, 116 miles per hour initiation speed.
Wow.
So it was fast. and you're going through the whole first corner at just tipping over 100. So it was fast, especially tandem door to door, fastest I've competed in. So
crazy.
Yeah, that was.
And is that
fun.
because they have a typical, like, you know how the United States has a lot of oval tracks because it makes the bleachers accessible and like they can do an event easily there?
Yeah.
Are they doing that on specifically high-speed tracks because it's like at an airfield or like on a? Why are they all so fast? What is their regional thing?
2 of the tracks are 2 F1 tracks. Well, not anymore, obviously, but Sochi was one that wasn't the fastest one. It was probably 100 on initiation. And Igora Drive, F1 was supposed to be going there this year, obviously pre-war, that situation. So, yeah, I think the tracks were just built for speed, obviously. Some really big curves, and it allowed for. We had a huge straight as well before the corners, so it allowed for maximum attack on entry and just launching in.
Do you like the giant tracks like that? Because like sometimes a kart track or a smaller track would allow the drivers to be closer everywhere,
Exactly, yeah.
cheaper to run. The crowd can be so much closer and see 100% of everything. I was just at a Utah Formula D event, and because of the way the track was built, it was a road course. It was never meant for someone to see every corner at once. So the crowd could really just see one thing. In Russia, can the crowd see everything? Like, is the big, fast, sweeping tracks and stuff conducive to like good viewing and like good experience as a driver and competition and stuff, do you think?
Yeah, like there's for and against, you know what I mean? Like for me personally, I like switching, getting a bit of everything in a season, not just all fast tracks where you're flat out, and as you said, it's sometimes harder for proximity because the split between the cars are a lot more noticeable, especially, for example, if one car is slightly faster than the other, it's amplified on a faster track. And if you're chasing a slower car on a faster track, you might need all the momentum you can to link the course. But if someone is slower in front of you, it's like really hard to keep it going. So drivers might have to leave more distance on entry or just adapt the style. Where if you're on a smaller, more technical track, like a lot of courses we have in Europe and some in the US as well, I feel like it adds for a better show because the fans are really close and you can be like you're probably a gear lower, so the proximity with everyone is there all the time, and that's what it's all about for me.
Okay. And how are tires and stuff overseas right now? Are they getting crazy? I was talking to some of the people like Ian from Valino and Dave and everybody. They're saying the tires are getting so grippy, they're blowing the cars to pieces, and like the drivers are struggling with the setups and stuff. Is that a real thing?
Yeah, so definitely the tyre game has changed a lot in Europe, especially over the last couple of seasons. So there's a lot of tyre companies coming in with just a drift-specific tyre, not designed for anything else, and they're super grippy. So if you have the car with all the best drivetrain pieces on it and have a lot of power, that's the biggest advantage you can have, because in a lead position you're going to walk away from someone on a semi-slick tire that a lot of the competition are using. So for me personally, I'm using the Falcon tire, the same tire I've been using for 10 plus years, and obviously the drift-specific tyres are a much softer compound than a street semi-slick tyre. So in some ways it makes it better, some ways it makes it worse. But for me personally, I think it's almost gone a step too far, because in battles now you're starting to see a lot of people straightening because they have so much rear grip, the front is starting to understeer, or they don't have the power to run. They think they need the biggest, grippiest tyre. They don't have the power to pull it off, and the drifting visually looks worse. So I think it's gone one step too far. To be honest, my favourite tyre rule in the world at the moment is Formula Drift, where it's 200 tread wear and above. So they're sticky tyres, but they're not insane. Like some of the tyres in Europe, you're down to 100 tread wear and maybe even less. So it's that's my personal opinion. Obviously, everyone has a different opinion.
Do you think that the cars will I've always thought that the limiting factor on tires was just going to be getting 2 laps out of a set. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are they actually getting 2 laps out of a set on these even stickier tires? Do you think the cars would adapt and become faster and faster as people throw more drivetrain at them and stuff? Or at the 200 tread wear limit, is that kind of the limit of where you can get 2 laps and put on a good show and everything else?
I feel like that 200 is the nice, perfect cutoff point, because in Europe you're actually seeing a lot of the drivers on the sticky tires, they're saying, oh, the track is too long, because they can't make 2 laps, so they have to adjust their wheel speed maybe drop their wheel speed quite a bit, so they don't have the tire smoke anymore, and like they're on the rev limiter everywhere with small angle, but that's not very exciting to watch. They might be way faster than someone, you know, blowing the tires off, but drifting for me is a spectacle. It needs to look and sound and be visually attractive to, you know, keep everyone interested.
I agree.
But that's the way I feel. So yeah, it's there's pros and cons, for sure.
All right. Is there anything interesting that you've seen in the last few years competing and, you know, being around the world that like jumps out to you that is changing the whole game kind of thing? Like you ever get somewhere and like I see Russian ice drifting and it's like, oh, that's the coolest thing ever. Like, you know, you see all these little things, and as I travel, the world like opens up like a flower and all this stuff, and you know, you're just keep seeing stuff, and you travel more than anybody almost.
Yeah.
What amazes you and you get excited to see when you go places?
To be honest, a busy event is like the best feeling, and what I've seen in the last couple of years, especially with Drift Masters and Red Bull getting involved with Drift Masters, the media presence has really, I think, been driven to a new audience, and for the first time ever in Europe this year, there's been sellout events. So like Mondello sold out 2 times this year in Ireland, one for LZ Fest, which was insane. Also sold out for Drift Masters, which was crazy. The last round in Poland was sold out weeks in advance. Riga was sold out weeks in advance. And you know, when you're coming to an event and you know that it's sold out before the day, that's new for us, and it really excites me to put on a show for the fans that watch. For example, the last round in Poland, I'd say 500 or 600 people flew from Ireland to Poland to watch the drifting in the stadium event. So like one section of the grandstand was just full of Irish flags and support for myself, Jack, Connor, Dwayne, and it feels like you're almost fighting for your country, and it's a really proud feeling.
That's
and
rad.
Yeah, something that I love.
I don't know that feeling.
No, it's amazing.
That's
amazing.
crazy that people fly around, and like think about how much effort that takes people to watch you guys and cheer for you and everything.
Yeah.
That's got to be feel like really good.
And just when you have the support, you know, you have fans that want to see you do well, or you know, even seeing kids and being inspiring to a kid, because one time that was me, and I was looking at, you know, someone like Kindamura or Taniguchi used to be my favorite driver, and when I was on Kazana, like, you know, the D1 legends back then, and when I was probably 13 years old, I saw them in Silverstone, and I was that kid walking up to them like, oh, I think he might have looked at me for a second, you know, like, and now for it to go full circle is mad. And
yeah, that's crazy.
It makes me love it.
Especially because Drift Masters is probably bigger than D1 ever was now, or, you know, specific things like that.
Yeah.
Was that Silverstone event like a sellout, huge ordeal, or was it just like a small thing that happened and you happened to go to it because you heard
I was a
about it?
kid, so it was a big ordeal to me. I think they tied in with Time Attack or something, so it was a busy event. But I saw D1 a couple of times. One time they came to Ireland as well, and it used to blow my mind. And
so cool.
now you see the kids, you know, 10 to 16, 17, and they get to meet their favorite drivers, whoever that might be, and you see the buzz they get off it when they get to chat or get a picture or get an autograph, and you know, we wouldn't be able to do it. Like, I'm lucky enough that this is my full-time job, and it's for people that support drifting. Is the only reason why we're all able to do this for a living, and get to travel the world, meet new people, drive crazy tracks and drive new cars and party, and you know, have a great experience. But it doesn't come easy. Like, I've dedicated my whole life to this. There was the first 7 years were a real hustle and struggle, and you know, it never really gets easy, no matter what level you're at. You have to keep fighting to try to stay relevant, to try to stay, you know, close to being on top or whatever, and but it's worth every bit of blood, sweat and tears.
That's awesome. All right, do you have anything else to say? Any questions? Or
Thank you
anything
very much for inviting me, and you know, BC were the first guys to get in contact with me and say, oh, come out to Drift Week, have some fun, we'd love to see you back
Was
here.
it Cody?
Yeah, Cody
Slack?
Yeah,
Right.
he's a legend.
Yeah.
And
Hi, Cody Slack.
Hey Cody, thank you again. No, he's been a real great supporter of us for many years now. Super cool guys to work with, and obviously for ECU Master, supplying us with the cars to have some fun in. Falcon tires, you know, jumped on board when they heard we were coming back to the US. So huge shout out to Falcon as well. Of course you, because you've been, you know, hitting us off and maybe thinking that we weren't going to make it a few times, but. I think you were in touch with me like so far ahead when I had like 10 events to get through before I could really think about what I'm doing at the end of the year. But we made it here.
Yeah.
And it's been an absolute blast. I'm enjoying it. And we're not finished yet.
No, there's still 2 more tracks to do. It's crazy. All these tracks. Because like, I need to go over to Europe. One of the things that sucks about Drift Week is like, I'm so spoiled. Sion is my cameraman, and he's been to so many tracks. We've been doing so much stuff because I've been drifting for like 20 years. But you know the feeling of like you keep going back to the same places over and over and over again?
Yeah.
I wanted to start going to all these places I've never been, and I'll probably never get to go to Europe and hit like 8 tracks in a trip or something like that, because it's almost impossible. So I was gonna say, I'm so lucky to get to do this. I wanna figure out how to do it in other places of the world, because even I go to Japan all the time, and like I end up drifting at the exact same places in Japan, because that's where my car is. So I don't know. I need to figure all that stuff out. I wanna go to Europe. What's the best track I need to go find in Europe and go drive?
To go drive, I would say Riga is really sick.
Riga?
Like, Riga is special. You've been to Mondello, but you haven't driven it. It's good fun.
Dave said he had a car for me, and then he let somebody else drive it. And then everybody said that IS sucks and don't drive it anyways.
Yeah. But it was good for you to experience the event, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I just wanted to come see how it is, because until you go someplace, like, you don't know what it's like. No idea. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Boom.